Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a huge question, one that really gets to the heart of who we are. Where, exactly, is memory inside our brain?
All right, let's start with a little thought experiment. I want you to think about your very first memory. You got it? Maybe it's a birthday party or the smell of your grandma's kitchen. Now, where in your brain do you picture that memory being stored? Is it like in a single little spot?
Well, here's a spoiler for you. There is no single memory spot. It's not like a file you can just pull out of a cabinet. Turns out, memory is this incredibly complex network that's spread all across your brain. So today, we're going to take a tour, a road trip, if you will, through the brain to map out this amazing network. We'll see where different memories get made, where they're stored, and how we pull them back up.
All right, let's get into it. To even start building this map, you've got to understand a really key concept. Not all memories are the same. In fact, the brain basically splits them into two major categories. So, check this out. On one hand, you've got your explicit memories. Think of these as the what memories. They're the things you have to consciously recall. Facts, like the capital of France, or events, like what you had for dinner last night. But then, on the other hand, you have implicit memories. These are the how memories. They're totally automatic, running in the background. We're talking about skills like riding a bike or typing on a keyboard without looking. You just do it. Okay, so our first stop on the tour, we're heading straight to the headquarters for those conscious, explicit memories. You know, the stories and facts that basically write the autobiography of you. And here it is, the star of the show when it comes to explicit memory, the hippocampus. It's this small, kind of seahorse-shaped thing tucked away deep inside your temporal lobes. Now, what's key to remember is this isn't where your memories live forever. Nope. This is where they're born.
A great way to think about the hippocampus is like the director of a movie. It takes all the raw footage from your day, everything you see, hear, and feel, and it starts editing it all together into a coherent scene. It's the part of your brain that decides what's important and starts the process of turning an experience into a memory that can be stored for the long haul. So, how do we know all this? How can we be so sure the hippocampus is this important? Well, a huge part of what we know comes from the tragic but incredibly important story of a man known to science as patient HM.
Okay, so back in the 1950s, HM, his real name was Henry Mollison, suffered from absolutely severe epilepsy. As a last resort, doctors performed a really radical surgery. They removed parts of his temporal lobes on both sides of his brain, and that included most of his hippocampus. Now, the good news, it worked for his epilepsy. The bad news? It had this unbelievable, completely unexpected side effect. And that side effect changed everything we thought we knew about memory. See, HM could remember his past perfectly fine. His childhood, everything up until the operation, was intact. But he completely lost the ability to form new long-term memories. Imagine that. He could meet someone, have a conversation, and then 5 minutes later, it's like it never happened. To him, he was meeting them for the very first time, every single time. He was literally trapped in the present moment. All right, now let's switch gears. We're going to travel to a different part of our memory map, the part that handles all those implicit, unconscious memories. You know, the stuff we do on autopilot. And for this, we need to look at two other main players. The cerebellum, which is tucked away at the back of your brain, and the basal ganglia, which is a bunch of structures deep in the center. These two are the absolute masters of what we call muscle memory or procedural memory. So they work as a team, but they each have their own specialty. The cerebellum, think of it like a coach. It helps you learn and fine-tune your motor skills, like learning to balance on a bike or play a new chord on the guitar. The basal ganglia is more like the automation department. Once you've practiced something enough, the basal ganglia takes over and turns it into a full-blown habit. That's why you can drive a car and change gears without even consciously thinking about it. And this is where HM's story gets even more wild. Remember, his hippocampus was gone, but his cerebellum and basal ganglia, they were totally fine. So scientists found that he could actually learn new motor skills. They had him do a task where he had to trace a shape while only looking at his hand in a mirror. It's super tricky. And day after day, he got better and better at it. But here's the kicker. Every single time they showed him the task, he swore he had never seen it before in his life. His hands remembered, even when his conscious brain had no clue. But wait, our tour's not over yet. Because memory isn't just about facts and skills, right? It's also tangled up with our emotions and whatever we're focusing on in the moment. So let's talk about the supporting cast. First up, the amygdala. It sits right next to the hippocampus, and it's basically the brain's emotion processor. Think of it like a highlighter pen. When something really emotional happens, good or bad, the amygdala highlights that memory, making it stronger and more vivid. That's why you can remember a really scary moment or your first kiss in such detail. Then you've got the prefrontal cortex, the big area right behind your forehead. This is your brain's CEO or your mental workspace. It manages what's called working memory. That's all the info you're juggling in your head right now to get something done. Okay, so we've seen how memories are formed, but how do they stick around? Our final stop on the tour reveals this absolutely crucial process, and the amazing thing is, it all happens while you're asleep.
You heard me right. Sleep is non-negotiable for memory. Think about it like this. During the day, your hippocampus is like a temporary clipboard, jotting down all the important stuff that happens. But that clipboard has limited space, so at night, when you go into deep sleep, the hippocampus gets to work. It replays those memories over and over, kind of like a movie highlight reel, and it sends those replays to the neocortex, that big, wrinkly outer part of the brain. This process strengthens the connections and basically moves the memories from the temporary clipboard into the brain's huge long-term storage library.
So, let's zoom out. What have we learned on our tour? The biggest takeaway is that memory is not one thing in one place. It's a massive team effort. You've got the hippocampus acting as the director, the amygdala as the emotional highlighter, the basal ganglia and cerebellum handling all the automated skills, and the whole thing gets filed away for the long term in the massive library of the neocortex. It's a living, breathing network.
And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question to chew on. If our memories are what make us who we are, but those memories are physically being moved, rewritten, and strengthened every single night while we sleep, does that mean we wake up as a slightly different person than the one who went to bed?